So, welcome to the April 2022 rendition of the Seattle Power BI user group. Today we'll be having another kind of quick introduction to the group and walking through some of the slides that we have here for the benefit of just kind of some of the new folks that may be joining. We will not be doing a member spotlight this month because I made an update to the slide deck, but I did not update the agenda. So I've got a surprise for some folks to jump into, and I think Reid may appreciate it too. And then some announcements, and then obviously we'll get to the bit that everyone's really here for, which is for Reid to share some great material with us. But again, for the benefit of those that have not been with us before, we may have folks from all over the world and various time zones here, but this group kind of was created with a focus on Power BI enthusiasts in the Seattle area, specifically the west side, because we've got a nice big lake that runs through the middle of the area. And then there's some other groups as well that have some great sessions in the area too. As far as our why, we just love to bring people together who have a passion for the greatness that is Power BI. We love to share knowledge, talk about opportunities, kind of grow together, and just really look at opportunities to, just have drum up some excitement and some more excitement around Power BI. And then, like I said before, we're recording the session, so that's for the benefit of those that cannot make it. I think we've got a pretty good kind of cadence going with kind of switching between lunch times and after work sessions, and it seems like lunchtime's been pretty good for most people. So I think we're trying to kind of figure out cadence going forward, but I think we're pretty good with lunchtime. And then just a couple of reminders here. As far as kind of session things, if you will, just again, be friendly, patient, welcoming. I know that everyone always is these things, but it doesn't hurt to remind everyone, just being open to questions and viewpoints and various skill levels, understanding everyone's differences, and then most importantly, just be kind and considerate. Now I'm going to jump over to this next slide here. So this was something that we're kind of discussing with a few, or I was discussing with a few people this week, and Wes was involved in that conversation as well. And one of the things that came up in that, we were talking through some pie charts the other day, and I just thought, what a great venue to kind of talk through this with some of the folks we have here, specifically Reid as well. So I'd love to get your take, Reid, on some of these things. But I have absolutely no bias at all whatsoever, and I definitely love pie charts and dessert charts. But at the end of the day, right, there's a lot of kind of conflicting views and takes on the value of pie charts and donut charts and other things like lollipops and things. We may not go into that in this context, but my question to you all, and I'd love to kind of hear some different takes on this, and we can spend a couple minutes here, is art or travesty, pie and donut charts? And can anyone come up with one or two reasons where we may like to use pie charts or where pie charts absolutely don't fit? There's a lot of opportunities here. I've obviously got some fun ones, the Pac-Man pie chart and a little sunburst chart below in the center there, but just love to hear anyone's take on this. Has anyone kind of developed any dashboards or anything where they have used pie charts to good effect, or donut charts or kind of circular charts and things? Oh, Amon, you want to jump in?
Well, I just want to say that I think the first dashboard I made in this job, I put a pie chart inside a donut chart. I thought I was being clever. They were sort of related to different dimensions on people. It was basically race on the outside and gender on the inside. And that was the one thing that got nixed. The leadership team looked at it and they're like, we can't read that. It doesn't make. So that's what you get for trying to be clever. But I still do have a pie chart, or no, it's probably a donut for the, what I originally had.
Mm-hmm. So you replaced what you had before with a donut in there?
Yeah, I just, like, you have the two rings in the bottom. I had a ring outside a pie, but I kept the ring, the donut, and instead of the pie, I just did something else. So I like what Patrick says, give the users what they want. But I understand that sometimes the users don't express one way or the other, and then you have to make a decision. I'm not philosophically opposed to pie charts. I'll just leave it at that.
Well, according to this one, pie chart's a useful chart and I can't read what percent that is because it's a pie chart. I mean, Reid, do you have any hot takes on this critical topic of dashboarding?
Yeah, I mean, I will say that they take up more room than, say, like a gauge. I put more of like a bullet chart. Like I often like those to display. But like the best type of data usually is when it's a binary comparison of usually like two cuts, because at least that way, for the most part, like I mean, yeah, the thing that you're looking at below, like typically you're probably going to have a data label. So it's not only is it a pie chart, but it's also a badly designed chart, because there should be labels and other appropriate stuff at that point to help with that. But you can still roughly tell that's probably 10%, you know, approximately, because you can think most people think in quarters, and you can divide the quarter up by like, all right, that's probably like two to 2.5 of that slice would be a quarter, so therefore it's like 10%. So I usually restrict it to those if a customer wants it. Otherwise, again, like because of the real estate space needed for a lot of other stuff, I usually resort to a like a stack chart that has a fill meter, you know, to 100%. If that's their actual goal for the type of data, and I usually try to restrict it to no more than maybe 3 or 4 categories at most to display in one of those. If you know, it's like maybe a yes, no, and NA or something like that for like a survey or other typical questions that are used for survey or demographics data and things like that. But I usually can find better visuals to use for it. I wouldn't say they're bad. I just think that there are other more useful visuals to use that can give you a similar look, but also in a smaller footprint on a report page.
Yeah, I'm seeing lots of nods there, Gaston, as well. I'd love to hear your take on this.
Usually I am all in with you know, the right way to tell a story. So if it's donut, as Reid mentioned before, you know, kind of if you explain to the client what is the story behind the scenes to kind of leverage that data, you know, for me, it's kind of a matter of finding the right way to tell the story. If that is pie, donut, or whatever, you know, it's up to, you know, that conversation where you are a storyteller behind the scenes. So that's the key.
Exactly.
I think I can occasionally be convinced of the value of them. Quarters and halves, yeah, I think like you said, Reid, quarters and halves are definitely some of the more powerful aspects of telling that story.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else from the audience got any hot takes here? I'd love to hear from some of you folks. Oh yeah, Harry, that's a good one. Yeah, percent complete. I think yeah, that's one of the other cases too. I think on the top right there, percent to goal. But I think with the caveat that real estate is important, so gauges and donuts kind of competing on the real estate side of things there, but without trying to keep things too busy. Fernando, appreciate the GIF. Pie charts are evil. Yeah. Good one, perfect. Awesome. Cool. All right, so without further ado, let's jump on to the next part. So yeah, as far as announcements, just a reminder that we do still have our discussion board up on the Meetup site there. So some of those cases where, you know, maybe there's a question that you can't find an answer to on, but like Stack Overflow or on the Power BI community or things like that, we do have the discussion board there, and we've got some fantastic folks in the Meetup group that, you know, are able to answer some of these questions and things. I know that I definitely ping Wes and Gaston frequently with questions I have for things, but I'm sure there's a lot of other people in the group that are willing to share things that they've, you know, come up with, or answers to questions there when, you know, you've kind of exhausted all avenues, because, you know, it's a big, powerful tool, and there's lots of different ways of doing things, and lots of people have found their own tricks. And then as far as kind of recordings and things, we've got our user group channel on YouTube now. So I think as of last month or the month before, we've started posting up there as well. So if you want to go back and watch some of the meetings there, that's an option too. And that's specifically if you want to share with someone who may also, you know, have not been able to come to the session, you can kind of share the link there and see what they think, and then, you know, invite them to the next session. Wes or Gaston, any other announcements we guys have? No? Cool. Okay.
Nope.
Perfect timing. Yeah, and then just a reminder as well, you know, being involved, that's really what we're all about here, right? So we just want to hear from everyone and get a lot of different perspectives, and we love being able to find wonderful guests like Reid and you know, various people we had over the last year, almost 2 years now, actually. So yeah, just love that people can attend. You know, feedback is king. You know, we're here to share what we know and bring folks in and kind of bring everyone together. And the more feedback we can have, the better, as far as, you know, helping optimize these sessions for everyone. And even, you know, if you've got a topic or an activity or something you want to share with us and everyone here, or, you know, a recommendation for a speaker that you think might be a good person to bring in, then definitely let us know, and we'll see what we can do about working on that for everyone. And then Gaston, I will hand it over to you.
Sounds good, Andrew. Yeah, pretty excited to kind of have the welcome to Reid on this one. I've been connected with Reid before, you know, it's been a long time. I think first you know, kind of interaction, I was in Uruguay back then. You know, I was still in Uruguay, and we kind of meet each other, you know, from the MVP network, and you know, it's great. And suddenly, Reid had kind of a really great live streams today with Nicola. Some kind of message for everyone here that joined our CPAC group is, you know, it's great to join the Power BI community. You know, it's easy to be engaged. It's easy to be here. It's easy to jump and say, I want to kind of, you know, make my contribution in terms of, you know, sharing any kind of experience on projects or deal with Power BI, or kind of entry level for any kind of company, industry. You know, it's great to share knowledge in terms of what was your experience with Power BI. You know, and so my message here is kind of I really love to bring more speakers on this kind of meetup and CLR Power BI user group, but at the same time, you know, I really encourage everyone to participate in the Power BI community, because this is great to kind of share knowledge, have networking, you know, become, you know, kind of, and say, okay, this is my contribution with the Power BI community. This is what I want to share, you know, and all the stuff. So today I'm really excited to say hi to Reid. Thanks to share your session with us today, and always happy to say hi to Reid, because we've been kind of mixing in different conference sessions and all the stuff, having kind of mutual friends from the Power BI community, and, you know, great to have you here, Reid.
Absolutely. Thanks again for having me. I'm going to go into my portion now.
Yep, whenever you want,
cool.
kind of you can start share screen, and let's start from there.
Let's do it.
Awesome.
Let me know when you can see the screen.
Yep.
Yeah, so as Gaston mentioned, we've both been part of the MVP community now for a few years, and almost half a decade now. I know, Gaston, you have I saw your 5-year chip. I'm getting 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, I'll be getting my 5-year chip this year, because I have four chips on the tower. But I do a lot of stuff with the visualization and design. Some of you may have caught my little demo that I did as well with the the Power BI community show that was on earlier this week as well on the Microsoft YouTube channel. But I really enjoy figuring out ways to kind of upgrade and enhance like native visuals, maximize their potential before I start exploring like custom visuals. And I still find use cases for like Deneb and other Articulator, other things that let you build custom visuals from scratch. But I try to, like I said, kind of milk water from a rock, so to speak, and get every drop of like available value from the native visuals, because there's just so many ways to customize them. So it's often what kind of my specialty has been for a lot of the YouTube videos that I do. But give a little background about myself. I'm been in the BI industry for about 5 years, again as an MVP for almost the last 5 now. And I do a lot of work here in the Seattle area and then worldwide with many of my clients. But specialties kind of aesthetics and design, and quite a lot of times over the years, I've found myself in many opportunities to present user groups. And I also taught at the University of Washington here for data visualization, another college, Bellevue College in the area. So plenty of experience, and I would say enjoyment comes out of training and teaching with people versus just like, say, building a model or a data set for a client. But I enjoy all of it. And it's something that definitely I have a lot of passion in when it comes to just like community involvement and sharing. But what we'll be talking about today, as time permitting, that we can fit into our lunch and not lunch hour, depending on where you guys are tuning in from, a few different little tips and tricks and other stuff like that. And one thing that I want to do though is just get hands-on with the demonstrations and everything today, and have this be primarily demo driven. So with that, I'll actually finish the slide portion. Go ahead and just pop over to my first Power BI report, which will be, actually, I want to start with this one. Here you go. I'm going to change up the order a little bit today. But with each of these, it's kind of ways to kind of upgrade or enhance stuff using, in many cases, often the magical F of X button that you might see in a lot of reports. But this was something that was actually inspired to me based off of working with InfoRiver over the last year. And some of the videos that you might have seen, or if you're familiar with that product, I've recorded most of their content, but they actually had a feature built into their little advanced matrix table, which did a font color change that was built into their tool, where like darker colors for background color for any of their columns automatically had it switched over to a lighter font color to make it visible. Like, all right, well, I like that idea because I've actually struggled with this. In this case, what you might expect is like if this was black on a dark blue color, it's going to make it hard to read. And similarly, if I have this on with a dark data bar, it makes those difficult to read. So you might notice that based off of some logic that's been set up in here, as the colors darken, it actually flips from black to white. And same thing as the bars grow over here, it will automatically switch over to like a kind of a neutral gray color. So let's actually see what the logic looks like in the model for this. I'm gonna come over here and I'm gonna open up my sales. Now the rules are pretty straightforward, but one thing that I want to mention, by the way, is the fact that conditional formatting, you can apply more than one. So if you actually go to remove, you can see that I have both the background color and a font color formatting applied to this. Opening up the font color, I just have a pretty basic rule set. What I did is, based off of sales, I created a couple of rules because what it can determine for any of the data sets in here, it can really identify like what the percentage range is, greatest value to lowest. And I just set between 0 to 25% in here to be black. And then after like a certain percentage from 25 to 100, I color that white. Now, that range does require a little bit of tweaking depending on how dark your color is, what the ranges are between the two of them. And a lot of it really comes down to like, testing it out. Like, maybe I would have wanted it at 35% instead, or, and I would, in a perfect world, I would love there to be an apply button here. So I don't have to keep like actually doing this and closing the window down. But you can see now the range has increased up to the upper bound. So now these are black, but it's mostly a matter of once you set up really the two rules of where that threshold is to cross over to switch, then adjust it based off of how it looks with your data. But it's a pretty easy implementation. But I think that the pitfall that this helps you, or the pain point that this helps you avoid, is the fact that otherwise, historically, what I would used to do is I would make sure that my background color was just set to a color that was not dark enough to, cover up the text. And of course, the range is a lot smaller now. It's much harder for me to identify highs and lows when the difference in color, the darkness of the color isn't nearly as much. So I think this allows you to go really, really dark with your colors in conditional formatting while still being able to maintain a readable text color. And similarly with the year-over-year sales, the data bar was applied, and again, I just had font color formatting. And at that point, I actually had a couple of them here between a darker and a lighter. Essentially, if more of the bar was off of it, based off of how wide my column was, I wanted it to actually be slightly darker. And then otherwise, if it's the majority of the data label, let's call it that, is actually covered by the bar, then I want it to be slightly lighter. So, but again, like that kind of comes out where you have to put the rules in, and then based off of looking at your data and how wide your column is too, which is going to be important. You just kind of have to go back and forth and tweak it a few times to make adjustments, click OK to see where it lands, and then find a nice little happy medium for it to exist into. But I think both of these add a nice bit of value and also show the ability to kind of layer conditional formatting within Power BI, but then really give you the entire range of the color palette when using it with either the bars or the background color. Pretty straightforward design though. But I'm also, with any of these, I'll ask if there's any questions before I show the next demonstration. Yeah, any questions or comments about kind of the logic or the business use cases for this one before I move on?
Yeah, hey Reid, I've got a quick question here.
Sure.
So I see kind of the, like, particularly on the 494, that kind of makes things a bit difficult because you've got both high
Exactly.
contrast, low contrast. But I
Yep.
wonder, so the project I'm currently on, there's an emphasis on one of the gates on productionization is running things through accessibility reviews. For one of the key things is contrast. Have you kind of worked through that a bit with these colorings and things too? I realize it might be difficult with the 494 and things, but is that something you're considering here as well?
Not specifically in this one, but there is like also high contrast mode in the Power BI service and a few others that I can't turn it on desktop right now when it comes to readability. But I do have I do test with companies that need that. So like that does come up after you publish to the service. You test to see what it looks like in high contrast mode. Does it seem broken? Is it still readable? Another thing is the on-screen reader. So like there are options to add alt text to objects and other stuff in Power BI to help with accessibility and everything else. But yeah, a lot of that kind of just comes up through the conversations and then seeing what specific aids are needed by the report consumers.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Yep, no problem. Any other questions on this one? I'm going to assume that's just like, I liked it, little melody chime. All right, so I'll go ahead and close this down. Move on to my next one. Let's do, yeah, similar looking report, but I'm basically going to migrate over to the left here, and I actually want to talk about this guy right here. So kind of a multi-layered visual. There's two like visuals that I've been enjoying presenting because there's so many different parts to it, and I think this one's actually a great example to show how you can upgrade a waterfall chart to be very rich for the user to interact with, but also lots of ways to sprinkle a bit of conditional formatting in here. So let's first just explore this from the perspective of what features are on this for the report consumer who's coming into here. So a couple of things that you'll see, just to give you some context. What I have is like with the waterfall chart, when it does a comparison, it shows you a total value of two categories. So in this case, here is sales for Australia. Here is sales for Canada. Now it's Australia's is 1.9, Canada's 1.2, and it actually shows you how we arrived between those based off of what brands sold to them. Northwind, and so these are all like brands of purchases that they're making within these countries. So overall, Canada is lower, but Northwind traders actually had a slightly higher sale in Canada versus Australia, and the rest were all like lower overall, hence the lower total number. But the waterfall by default also zooms in. Notice that we're not actually showing an entire axis range on the y-axis because it's designed to show you to zoom on the variances. The goal of a waterfall is a variance analysis. But if you actually want a fair comparison, I have a slicer up here that actually lets me go from y-axis type, dynamic, which is default. It zooms in based off of the total variance amount, or I can also set it to 0 so I can get a better perspective really on like what's the scale of the variance values versus the actual grand total of what either of these two are. So it lets me actually kind of see from a zoomed in and out perspective between the two of them. And I'll discuss each feature one at a time. So that's actually achieved from the fact that they added a new feature to Power BI last fall, where for the y-axis, you can actually now come in and apply a measure into this. Previously, the default would be auto. You could manually type in a number, but now you can actually come in and assign a field value based off of any of the data that you. Oh, that's interesting. I just downloaded the latest build today, and like notice that there's a weird shadow in an extra window over on the right. So there's like there's a bug in the, the latest version of the Power BI desktop that just was launched, but doesn't affect the demo. Field value, and then I can assign a measure into here. So that's actually what is being used in here. If I go back, the f of x symbol, I have a y-axis start. Now all that is, I look for this here, getting this bad boy in. So pretty basic selection that I have in here. What it is doing is it's harvesting the selection from this disconnected table. I basically used the enter data button. I made a table with a column with 2 rows. Row this is dynamic, row this is 0, and the measure itself just looks for that. So if my selection, if I've selected the word dynamic, have it return blank. And if I put blank into here, that's the equivalent to basically letting it default to the auto scale. So its start point will just be whatever it would normally default to. Otherwise, anchor it to 0. I could also technically have a switch statement. I could also do if selection equals 0, but because I only have 2 options, I don't need to write the extra code for that. I can always just have it do the alternate result in an if statement into there. I like short and sweet when I can, but that's basically what's done into there. And then that measure goes into here. So it either returns nothing or it returns the blank value, allowing me to get that y-axis. So that's kind of piece 1 that I have so far in my waterfall chart. Now, the other thing that I have as well too, let's start over in the upper left, is the country comparison. So right now, I unselect either of those. Notice that this blanks out entirely. Select only 2 comparison values. So I can select 2 of these, it shows up. If I have 1 selected, select 1 more comparison. If I select 3, select only 2. So it's showing me a blank canvas and guiding me or the user to say, hey, this is specifically designed for whatever this column is, to compare data from these 2 categories from that column itself. So as long as I ever only select 2, it renders it. Otherwise, it completely empties that out. So that's actually accomplished from a couple of things in here. So let's actually go through, and I'm going to clear this out, and let's see how this is actually being made. So first thing that we notice is that it says select 1 more comparison. So if I actually open up the title section, another f of x symbol. They're sprinkled all over the model. I have a measure that is sales waterfall title. So let's go take a look at that. Right about there. Okay, make it nice and readable. So what we have up here is I actually have a measure, a little piece in here at the top that is calculating the counted countries. Basically, that slicer that I'm selecting the country name from, it's counting how many are in there. And if it's 1, it tells me to select 1 more. If the count is 2, it basically returns the actual title that I want, like country variance comparison by sales. If I have 3, it tells me to select essentially 1 less. So I have kind of a condition to check either is it the Goldilocks amount? Is it just right? Is it too much, or is it too little? And return 3 different titles to present into there. So it's my way of doing like a breadcrumb trail to tell people to select the right amount and encourage them to use the tool properly with that. Now, there's a couple of other places where there is some sprinkling of formatting magic in here. Let's also take a look in my y-axis. You might notice that there's an f of x symbol in here. If I clean this off, first, where is it? Here we go. No, the color. If I clear that, the axis actually shows back up. I also can clear, there we are. So technically, this is what the blank chart would look like. It actually would still have the grid lines, and it would still have my axis in there. Even with no values, those would still show up. So again, I wanted to really like blank the chart out. So I actually have 2 measures in both of there, and bless Microsoft for continuing to add these in a lot of locations. But I can have logic to choose what my background line color is, and I can also have logic to choose what my y-axis color is. Coming up to here, and it's color. Take a look at one of these. Yep, similar. So basically, I have 2 variables declared for hex colors for either white or light gray. That's for the grid line color. And again, just a basic check to see, hey, is my country count exactly 2? It is. All right, so that means I have data. Color it light gray, otherwise color it white. And I have a slightly different one made with a darker color for the axis because it's a dark gray. So the colors between the 2 aren't exactly the same, so that's why they both need a dedicated measure because I do want my actual axis title color to be more close to a black. The background default color is kind of a very light, easy to blend in gray. But that's basically what the logic of both of those are doing, to then again just clean up the canvas a bit to make it seem nice and polished when the data selection has been cleared. Now, the last thing you also might be noticing is that the data itself also goes away. So I'll get to the breakdown selection in a minute, but the measure I want to show it is, one sec to get to the right one. Waterfall value, okay. This one, same thing. So base calculation, and this was made very piecemeal. I know that this could be a dedicated measure that I have stored somewhere else, because it is a repeating calculation that's the code is reused over and over again. I built this over like 5 videos, so that's why each time I added a piece. And otherwise, if I had known I would be using this calculation in so many spots, I would have probably actually made a core measure for it. But otherwise, it's the same check. There's an if statement to check. Again, is there exactly 2 countries selected? Okay, cool. Give me the sales amount. Otherwise, actually, don't return me any value. So that's how the columns and all the values disappear. So between all 3 of those, it completely empties out the visual if I'm not selecting the right number of comparisons between those. So we have 2 things that are kind of helping to guide users into a funnel for this is strict dual comparison, and then also the fact that we've seen the FMX symbol used to adjust this. Now, the last thing that I built into this, which I thought was another fun addition, at least for me, was the fact that now I can not only choose my total categories, in this case country, between the 2 sections, I can also choose my breakdown selection here in the middle. So I want to compare by like, these are, let's just assume these are values from a dimension table. My category, color, company. So I can actually choose what to break down between all of these. So now I can have all these different cuts. I can choose my countries to compare between. I can choose what to break down the data by. What do I want to interpret my variances under? And this could be with any dimension data you have in your model. Now this one was a little bit trickier. Rather than just some magical FFX buttons, I actually did some model design to build this one. But I like the fact that this could in theory be any number. You'd have to build a model out for it, but you could have any number of selections for your breakdown items in here. If we actually come to my model, maybe zoom out just a little bit. There you go. This is the table that I want to draw your attention to. I actually have a special breakdown selection table that is connected. And just each of these, let's just assume it's a dimension table, dimension table, dimension table. This could be, product, maybe like store location. This could potentially be client. There are a lot of different dimensions that throw into there. I'm just working with dummy data for this one. But the takeaway from this is the fact that I have an inactive relationship between this master metric column and something in my product table, the category column, the color column, and the brand name column. Let's actually look at what this table looks like. So the breakdown selection here, you might notice that there are a total of 3 selections: category, color, company, and associated with it, like if I was to select the category, this is every category that I have for my product table. If I was to select color, same thing. So what I actually have is a measure that activates the relationship from this to the correct corresponding table that contains like matching rows of data, or matching keys. And I know I am using text for this, but it is achieving the result that I want because I'm harvesting those exact values from the original tables that you'll see in Power Query here in a minute. So I basically unioned this table with this master, let's assume metric key column that has the corresponding rows of keys that would be able to correctly filter any of those tables that I want. And the measure activates this. So here, 3 calculations in here. Let me zoom out just enough so there it's legible. So 3 basic calculations. I'm just calculating that sales waterfall value that blanks out. And depending on if I'm selecting category, color, company, it just activates that relationship. It activates it to the product table. It activates it to the color table or the company table because it has all of the corresponding keys. So let's finish it up and see exactly how the table was built in Power Query. There we are. Oh yeah, I got to change the source. Give me 1 sec. And this is also why you always have a master source thing, so you don't have to update a whole bunch of queries. Let me just quickly throw that in. It'll take me about 15 seconds. Recorded waterfall. Waterfall breakdown comparison. There's my data file. All right, so we're going to do this and this. And there we are. Excellent. Now, because this is my reference source to everything, all of these now magically work again. Okay, perfect. So what I have, where is it? My breakdown selection. So here's my master table. Notice that if we zoom in, I am doing a combine step. It is combining a subquery for product stacked, company stacked, and color stacked. So all three of those are being appended or unioned, depending on the language that you're familiar with. All of those are being union together. So let's kind of reverse back and see how each of these are made. So let's look at my product stack. So what I
should
did
say there, Reid, that Fernando had a couple questions. I think it looks like you may have just answered one of them there.
Sure.
How did you create the breakdown selection table? What happens when there's additional categories added to the dimension tables? So would that be solved by the unions?
It is, yeah. So so what I did is I basically whatever dimension table that I have, I start by creating a new query using reference. So that treats the end result of that query as a new data source. So my product table starts that way. It starts with my core table, but then what I do is I remove all of my other columns. So there's my category column left. My duplicates get removed. So there's my distinct list of it. I rename that to metric because the columns have to have the same name. And then I added a selection custom column, it was basically just I added a custom column and then I put the word category in there because this will be my category selection for my slicer. Now, tomorrow, if a new category comes in from my product table, because they're linked, this reference to that table, it will automatically come in here. I'll have a 9th row or a 10th row. Same with my company. I started from my core table here, remove the other columns, and in this case, it's already distinct, so I didn't need to remove duplicates, but the exact same kind of logic process goes all the way to this. And I did the same thing with my colored table, started with that and built it out. And now they union together. And as long as you have referenced any of your original dimension tables for this and done that kind of build out process, then this metric table will update every time those do, because it has to get its data from those each time this model refreshes. So they always stay linked and up to date. And yes, again, like you are keying off of text values, but I would say that for the most part, this is a fairly secure way to do that. As far as text joins go, just because you're harvesting the exact values out of that table that you're joining back to it. So you're not getting data from two different systems. You're not doing, I'm hoping you're not doing any trims or uppercases or anything else because you don't need to. They're already a one-to-one alignment because they have the source and the output are one and the same in that case to be able to join back. But they do auto update with each other because of the nature of how this is built. And I did it with 3 examples here. You could do that with many more if you wanted to. Like you could easily have 5, 6, 7 different like breakdown selections. If you want the file for this, by the way, it is available on my blog files page for my website. You'll get links at the end to that, but you're able to go download any of these. Pretty much every time I do a video on YouTube, I make sure to provide usually a PBX file for people to download and play around with, just so they can explore it themselves. But yeah, that is the breakdown here. And just make sure that I. Okay. But other than that, were there any questions on this one that I can answer?
I think Fernando had one other question before this on
Sure.
on the small table there. Let's see, with the dynamic versus 0. So I think that's the disconnected slicer table, maybe. He asked, how do you create the table, modeling new table, enter or with an Excel file?
Can you say the question just one more time?
Yeah, so it looks, so for the small table with the values dynamic versus 0, how do you create the table?
Yes. Oh, great question. So for this table, yep, that is done from modeling. I don't know. I feel like enter data should be the modeling section, but clicking that, it basically is just literally let you make a manual table. And I just, it was like type dynamic 0. I name the table. I click load and then it pops into my model. Doesn't have any relationships to anything, isn't connected to anything. The only goal it has is to let me harvest this value from a slicer, but it's chilling over here by itself. It's on its own little island. But it's yeah, two rows, 1 column. Very easy to kind of enter the data yourself using that. And it generates a Power Query script with JSON. And at any point, you can also go and edit it later very easily, which is lovely. You might notice I also do full organization. I actually really like ETL, so you might notice the technically should be oops.
I love the organization.
Yeah, ETL extract, transform, and then load between all of those. And it really helps organizing. Even in my data model, I have my fact tables, dimension tables, disconnected tables. So it's very clear what's where, because it, I'd love the life of me to have a search bar. I definitely have enterprise models with like 140 queries and subqueries to mash everything together. And scrolling through that sometimes to find the right query is really annoying. So I keep asking Microsoft, and I've heard at least rumors of maybe something like this in the next 12 to 24 months might be coming up. But it's like that's been my number one request for them for years, is give me a search box for my query. I need a wildcard search, please. And yep, right up here. If you click that gear icon, you can come back and edit that anytime. It also works with copy paste, by the way. If you actually have a flat table of, I believe the limit is 3,000 cell values. So the combination of row and column, like how wide and tall it is, you have a maximum of 3,000 unique cell values that can be pasted into here or created manually. Though I really hope you wouldn't have to type in 3,000 values. That's how big these custom tables can get. There are a couple of workarounds for it technically, but it takes quite a few steps to get a large chunk of data locally into the into Power BI. All right, any other questions? Laughing in the back instead of dealing with that, trying to organize model queries and folders. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's what works for you. Everything should be foldered or grouped, because they're technically not folders, they are groups, even though they have a folder icon. Thanks, Microsoft. But yeah, like I go with what works well for my brain. I've seen as many query organization methods as I've seen people. So whatever makes it easier for you to come back in 6 months and immediately know where to go and what to look for. And that's a little bit different for everyone. Okay, there you go. And I actually want to remember to save this time, because this is the third time I've actually given this demo and I keep forgetting to save the file. So I have to keep going and fixing the data source. So now we're actually good to go. Let me go ahead and close this. Ken says he puts the staging queries at the bottom and then goes upwards. That does work. I'll add one last mention of this. Notice, by the way, watch this. I'm going to close this, close it, and close it. I would like these to stay like that, please, because I just set them that way. That should be a setting that should be cached. I'm going to close this window. Let's open it up again. It will always open fully expanded. So I always make sure to put the things that I'm going to most commonly use at the top of my list, or most commonly look at, which is typically the things that are actually materialized in my model, the load to. So that's why they go there. Staging is second, because normally, again, when I'm coming into here, it's either going to be my loaded tables or my staging tables. The least touched thing that I have typically is the actual source. Like that's the parameters, the connections, all of the base queries that give me the rest of my data. That's why I order it that way, because again, if you have a scrollable like 60 queries, it's kind of annoying to have to scroll down and close everything each time to get to the ones that you want. So because the fact that it opens up expanded like this, that's why I keep the most important ones at the very top first. Okay, and I can close this down. I'll get to this one, but there's a couple of others that I want to mention too. What am I for timing, by the way? When is a good stopping point, just so I can keep a sanity check for myself?
Yeah, we've still got about 10 minutes.
Okay.
Until one, so
a couple
up
others.
to you.
Okay. Yeah, no, this is good. And I also like general Q&A, honestly, too. So another one that I really liked that I built a couple of years ago, but this was a client request. So other tools have this. Some custom visuals now have this as well. I've seen it pop up at InfoRiver, which is really nice. But the breadcrumb trails are a somewhat common BI implementation where, like, as I'm drilling down, like I'm going to, starting from a top level, pay attention to the title. Like, notice that 2020 now showed up. Okay, now I'm going to click Q. All right, now it's actually creating a logic trail for me. Some can be implied, but it helps to keep the context of what I've drilled into. Especially if I save this, it tells other users what's been clicked and what's been drilled without having to necessarily, like, say, come up to here to see that. So it builds it into the title, and if I click on May, then it goes all the way down. So I've actually generated a dynamic title to provide this nice little trail that goes down to allow me to keep a sanity check and watch where I've come from. For those of you who've used any other type of BI platform before. You've probably seen this in a few others. Let me, as we can see in the title section here, there is that f of x symbol that shows up in a lot of spots. So that is how it's getting into the title, and we've already seen how that cake is made. So I actually want to show you the, where are you at? Oh, okay, there it is. I was like, not this one. So perfect. See if I can make it a little bit bigger. I just want to make sure it's visible for everyone. Okay. So a few things declared. I have my year selection, quarter year selection. I have 3 variables at the top. Essentially what this does is the selected value returns a value if a single value is selected. So basically each time I drill into something, when I select 2020 on that visual, I have now selected a year. So there is only 1 year. And that's what I'm doing is I'm doing a blank check. I'm just seeing, hey, is my month and year selection, is that blank or not? Okay, if it is not, then we're just going to do this nice concatenation. So I basically created this string. So it's, it's in a bracket, it's my year plus my quarter year and my month and year. So it's stringing all of them together with little arrows to, like, show the path. And now for those of you who are familiar with the order of precedences in conditional checks, either with if statements in SQL, it goes from the top down. So it needs to check from the bottom level first, because at the month and year level, I've already selected a single year. I've also already selected a single quarter. So if I just started with this at the top, which is basically just seeing if year is as a single selection, that's the only check that would always return to at any level. So I want to show you just so you can, like, if you're going, huh, what do you mean? Let me pop this up to here. I'm going to edit that a little bit. There you go. All right, starting from the top. Nothing in the title. I select year, 2020. All right, well, I'm going to go down to quarter. Well, quarter's not showing. I have a logic check in here to check for quarter, but it's not being returned because this condition is still being met as true. So as soon as that condition is being met, it's not going to ever check any of the other ones. So that's why you, like, whatever level you're drilling down into in terms of like checks for lower levels, at least based off of how I set this logic up, then the order in my check switch true statement needs to be flipped. That's why I have starting the lowest level first, because the only time month and year selection is actually going to be true for this is at the very lowest level, and then it checks from the one above it and above it. So the order is important with these things to make sure that it actually works properly. So I'm gonna go back now, and yeah, see, now it's actually each check is being done at the appropriate level to get all of that, because this is the only level where there's a single month and year. As soon as I'm at the quarter level, that first condition is now not being met, it's false. Now it is checking for the quarter condition, which in this case is being met. And then now that second check is false. So now that third condition is being met, and then doing that very last one. So this can also, kind of like my other demo, you can add as many layers into this as you want. I have 3 levels deep. This is for dates. You could also do this for categories as well, depending on whatever you have on your axis. But I do like just the additional context that this can give as you navigate between these things. I do see a couple of other questions. So let's see, from Aman, is there a way in DAX to make a list of the elements of the breadcrumb trails and use something like to combine and join them together? List of the elements. Could you elaborate on that? Because you could, in theory, string them together in like a card or something, but maybe give me some context of exactly what you're looking for that.
I mean, like, I think there is an argument to concatenate. So in your DAX, where you have the 3 lines and in the switch statement and the sort of the answer to each of them, it's like concatenate a left parenthesis, an element, a greater than sign, an element, greater than, and it's either 1, 2, or 3 of these elements. Yeah. So like line 7, there's 3 of them. Is there a way to, I don't know, create like a list of, I mean, it's just to clean it up so that if you had like 4 or 5 or 6 of these, you wouldn't have to write the greater than sign 4 or 5 times. That you would just like join, year selection, quarter selection, month year selection with the greater than sign, and then just stick a parenthesis on either side of it. So concatenate.
You could potentially write, you could try something, but again, like that code might be just as complex, because regular concatenate, unfortunately, is just 2 values. Which is kind of annoying. Like it literally just does 1 and 2. So like I've written it as, I would say, as cleanly as I can, given the custom text that goes into it. So I've not explored any other way or honestly seen another way to make it much cleaner, because it really is like a unique custom string.
It's not worth it, is what you're saying. Like the effort of trying
Yeah,
to put the code
exactly.
together.
Like there might be like a way to use one of the other ones to replace just this part, but it'd probably end up being just as complex in its own way.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, good question. Emily hadn't thought to do these labels for drilled on anything to not have to say, oh yeah, did you check your filter settings? Yep, absolutely. And again, like a lot of people aren't gonna like know to come up to this necessarily, so this does make it a lot more obvious to have that there. And it would be nice if that was a built-in feature, but again, it's nice that there are some custom visuals out there that do this a little bit more intuitively. I do know we're at about 57, so I think overall I want to rather than do any other demos, which I don't have a huge amount of time for, I want to open it up to general questions. Anything else you might have for me today? I also have some links and other stuff to share with all of you that I want to pop up on here. There we go. So yeah, QR code will take. I need to minimize, not close that. There we go. QR code will take you to the company website. A bunch of links in here that I'll paste into the Teams chat here in just a minute. I also have a discount code for anyone. I have a bunch of files and templates and lots of like Power BI related stuff that I provide for as part of my business. And the QR code just gets you 30% off. Kind of a nice little thank you for attending today. So feel free to use that on my website. If you are interested in any of this stuff and want to explore it, my YouTube channel has at this point I've done like 60 something live streams with guests, including Gaston. Many other experts around the world. I do one of those each week. I also have a weekly video on a tutorial on something in Power BI. So lots and lots of content on there for learning and exploring the Power BI platform or the Power platform. I'm also happy to answer any questions that you might have on LinkedIn. Feel free to drop me a line on there. And if you're having curiosities or questions about Power BI as well, I'll copy these over in just a minute. And then I have one other little QR code to pop up. So what this does is if you scan this, it takes you to a little blog sign up form. Signing up for my blog is free. And what it does is it also drops your name into a hat. And I do a drawing after each presentation where the person whose name is drawn, they get an hour of consulting with me. So you can ask me about modeling, DAX, anything else. Really just, pick my brain or have me help you if you're stuck on anything related to Power BI or have some curiosities about some stuff. And we'll just have a chat for about an hour. Yeah, other than that, let me go ahead and paste over the links here. There we go. That's huge. The nice thing that I really wish Teams would have a right click paste. What do they call, like paste as plain text? And unfortunately, it does not do that. So a Microsoft product requires me to go to, like, let's say Word and then copy, format, and paste. Not the perfect thing from the slide, but these are the links. Or Notepad. But still, why do I have to go to another tool? Like, there should be a right-click paste as plain text. That really should be a built-in feature to Teams. It frustrates me that is not. But I think, yeah, all the data comes through and the links do. So. Yeah, what's my take on Charticulator and Deneb? I love both. If you're familiar with my channel, you've seen Daniel Marsh-Patrick demo both of them multiple times on creating stuff. I think it is a great way to create a bespoke custom visual for a client. I've probably deployed, I would say 6, 7 custom visuals now for my clients using it, where like, hey, we really, like, our CEO really wants this specific chart. All right, well, it's kind of a mashup of this and that. I'll go ahead and spend about 2 or 3 hours in Charticulator or Deneb making it. I think it's offering a much lower cost of entry to get basic custom visuals made based off of like unique business requirements, rather than having to pay a development shop 10 hours to write the JSON code from scratch, and then your visuals costing you $7,000-8,000 to make for that. So I love them. I think it is really helping to usher in a new wave of custom visualizations in Power BI when they're needed at a much cheaper cost. And both with a couple of hours of learning are honestly not that difficult to use, especially when you consider that otherwise you have to be a JSON coder to write the custom visuals yourself from scratch in like Visual Studio Code. Awesome, Phil. Great to hear that you're going to implement some of those breadcrumbs. I always enjoy when these things can be implemented in a production environment.
Hey Reid, so on the breadcrumbs question, I've got one that's come up a number of times, and I've it's one of those things like you said that earlier that you wish Microsoft had solved a while back, and it's on the matrix view. When you kind of click through the hierarchy, and then in the upper left box, it sticks with the very first level of the hierarchy in the title. Is there a way to get this breadcrumb to work in that kind of application where in the top left of the matrix you can get it to show all the levels you've drilled through? There's one of the things I do is I just kind of set sometimes just manual text showing all the levels that can be clicked through. I've just not been able to figure out a dynamic way to do that yet.
You mean the so like
You've got like 2 or 3 layers on the matrix, yeah, with your rows.
Yeah, it always just says year, even when you like expand out. And you're wanting to know like if I was to do that, could it not like update the? Yeah, unfortunately you've already kind of hit it on the head. The workaround is you rename this. You rename the title itself into there, or you rename the year value into here into something that would be a stringed title specifically for that. That might be like date hierarchy or something to that nature. But yeah, I don't know of any way to do it dynamically.
One day there's an fx function for the rows, perhaps.
Maybe, because I mean technically what it is it's the title that's coming from here. So the only way around that is if you could have unless you could actually change the title and make that title dynamic. So this specifically inside of the hierarchy or in the column, that would be the thing that would probably need to be made dynamic somehow, or they would have to unanchor it from the title and let you put a custom one into there with an f(x) button.
Yeah. Maybe
good question though.
We can dream.
Exactly, yeah.
Oh, awesome. Any other questions from the audience here? We've got a few folks left, a little bit over, but got the wise mind that is Reid here for us today. Lots of thanks. Well, yeah, I really appreciate it, Reid. Lots of awesome content, and I know I've definitely found myself on your blog dozens of times looking through things and at the templates specifically, so I may very much use that discount code.
Yeah, absolutely. Glad to hear that the content's been useful for you.
Awesome.
Thanks, Walter.
Thank you again for be here, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for hosting Gaston.
Oh,
I just noticed Baby Yoda now behind you.
I'm hidden away. There you go.
Yeah.
Nice.
Awesome. Well, yeah, thanks everyone for joining.
I was gonna say I got my own little version.
Oh, there you go.
Awesome.
Yeah. Put that back. There you go.
Awesome. Yeah, like I said, thanks everyone for joining. Really appreciate it. I think for those of you that want to share this with other folks and anyone else that wants to come and join, I think the recording of this will probably be up sometime this week. Wes usually posts that. So thanks to him in advance for that. And then yeah, I think we've got another session planned next month. I don't remember off the top of my head who we are looking at for that one, or if it's confirmed yet. Gaston, do you know?
We are still defining that one, but we are gonna share with all of us soon.
TBD. I know we've got some fun ones in the pipeline there.
Yeah.
So
everyone's
welcome to join us next month again. I think we may look at doing the similar time again. So yeah, again, thanks everyone. Really appreciate it. Much thanks to Reid. Love the content. I know I took a few screenshots and we'll definitely be using some of that in some things I'm building right now. And just excited to see some of the applications and things that are possible here.
Excellent. Yeah. Thanks so much
Awesome.
for hosting.
All right. Thanks everyone.
See ya.
Have a good rest of your day.
See ya.
Cheers. Bye.